In 1945, the world collectively exhaled. The bloodiest conflict in human history had finally ended with the fall of the Third Reich, and millions poured into the streets to celebrate a hard-won peace. But imagine a scenario where those celebrations never happened, a timeline where the Axis powers secured absolute, unchallenged control over the globe. To understand how this happens, we have to isolate the exact fracture point where this alternate reality begins, the ruins of Stalingrad. In our timeline, this was the graveyard of the German war machine. In this timeline, the Sixth Army manages to break the final lines of Soviet defense. The commanding officers radio back to Berlin with a very different message. The city is secured. Receiving the news, the German High Command recognizes the immediate strategic victory. The eastern roadblock is gone, leaving the path to complete European conquest entirely clear. The 20th century's path toward freedom or global tyranny turned on the tactical results of a single winter in one freezing city on the Volga. Without the anchor of Stalingrad, the entire southern flank of the Red Army crumbles. A massive strategic vacuum opens up, stripping the remaining Soviet forces of their supply lines and defensive cohesion. The Soviet leadership tries to regroup, but the momentum of the German advance is insurmountable. Joseph Stalin is forced to abandon the defense and evacuate the government deep into the Ural Mountains. Soon after, Axis forces march into Moscow. Organized resistance in the east effectively ceases. Conquering the Soviet Union directly fuels the victor's war economy. The Third Reich immediately absorbs millions of square miles of territory, immense reserves of Caucasian oil, and countless tons of raw materials. This territorial acquisition solves Germany's greatest weakness, resource scarcity. With the Eastern theater closed, the entire weight of an undivided, fully supplied military apparatus pivots to face the West. Across the English Channel, Britain finds itself the sole remaining obstacle in Europe, facing the concentrated force of an army that no longer has to split its attention. Prime Minister Winston Churchill maintains a stance of absolute defiance. He broadcasts strict refusals to surrender or negotiate terms, regardless of the odds. However, willpower cannot stop a fully concentrated continental army. A massive amphibious and airborne assault overwhelms the remaining British defenses, leaving the capital shattered and the government dissolved. Across the Atlantic, President Franklin D. Roosevelt faces a terrifying geopolitical reality. The United States is abruptly cut off, possessing no European allies, no staging grounds, and no friendly ports. The victorious powers move quickly to divide the globe into two distinct spheres of control. The Third Reich claims Europe and Africa, while the Japanese Empire tightens its administrative grip over Asia. The Allied defense strategy functioned as a triad: Soviet manpower, the British staging ground, and American industry. With the first two pillars demolished, the United States was left strategically stranded in the Western Hemisphere. Inside this new global empire, daily life is heavily regimented. A system of absolute surveillance takes hold, designed to track citizens and facilitate the quiet, systemic erasure of entire populations. Because no competing superpower exists to enforce a Cold War stalemate, military technology faces zero external constraints. Advanced weapon programs, from long-range ballistics to early jet propulsion, are rapidly manufactured and deployed to maintain uncontested dominance over the airspace. Yet, complete control is nearly impossible to maintain. Forced into the darkest corners of occupied territories, network cells of ordinary people organize and take up arms to fracture the regime's infrastructure. These partisans operate under a stark binary choice. They can either fight from the shadows or wait to disappear entirely in the middle of the night. We look back at 1945 as an inevitable victory, but the margins were thin. This reality almost happened, showing that freedom is a fragile state that requires constant, vigilant defense.